Hollywood is a place where dreams are made, but what happens when those dreams turn into nightmares? The story of Bryshere Gray, once the shining star of Hollywood, is a tale of manipulation, betrayal, and the harsh realities of the industry. Today we dive into the shocking allegations made by Jaguar Wright and the whispers from within the industry about Bryshere's tragic downfall. But it's not just about one man's fall from grace. This is about a system that has been using and abusing young talent for decades. What really happened to Bryshere Gray? And who's to blame? It all started when Jaguar Wright made some explosive claims about two of the biggest names in Hollywood, Diddy and Will Smith. According to her, Bryshere Gray wasn't just another rising star. He was another victim of an industry that preys on young talent. Jaguar alleges that Diddy and Will took advantage of Bryshere, pulling him into their freak-offs under the guise of mentorship. This wasn't about helping Bryshere succeed. It was about using him for their own gain, with disturbing results. And Bryshere wasn't the only one. Many young men, she says, have been subjected to the same treatment, leaving their homes in tears, desperate to escape. But what happened next would shock everyone, even Jaguar herself. As Bryshere Gray's Hollywood star began to dim, his personal life unraveled in a very public way. It all started in 2012, when he was arrested for a shocking incident involving his wife. The police report described an assault that was so violent, it left his wife terrified for her life. She recounted a harrowing story of being strangled until she lost consciousness, her body battered by someone she once loved. Desperate for help, she ran to the nearest gas station, seeking refuge and calling the authorities. When the police arrived at Bryshere's home, the situation took a dramatic turn. Bryshere refused to surrender, barricading himself inside his house for hours. Negotiations between the SWAT team and Bryshere's team of lawyers dragged on, creating a tense standoff. This wasn't just a simple arrest. It was an indication of just how much Bryshere's mental and emotional state had deteriorated. By the time the police managed to take him into custody, his mugshot revealed a man who looked unrecognizable. His face, once full of hope and ambition, was now a reflection of years of pain and substance abuse. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It was the first of several run-ins with the law. After serving a short sentence, Bryshere was quickly back in prison, and rumors about his behavior continued to spiral out of control. Soon after, news surfaced that Bryshere had been arrested again, this time for allegedly attacking another woman. The accusations were disturbing, and it didn't take long for the public to question whether Bryshere had a history of violent tendencies or if something much deeper was at play. As the legal cases mounted, the whispers about Bryshere's mental health grew louder. He had been acting erratically for months. His public breakdowns, erratic behavior, and disturbing outbursts pointed to a man on the edge of collapse. But no one seemed to take his mental health seriously. Was this just a case of someone struggling with personal demons, or was Bryshere a victim of a much larger, more sinister system? As these legal troubles piled up, it became clearer. Bryshere Gray was not just dealing with his own inner turmoil. There were darker forces at work, manipulating his every move and pushing him into a spiral of self-destruction. Jaguar Wright's bombshell revelations about Bryshere Gray went far beyond the initial shocking claims about Diddy and Will Smith. According to Jaguar, Bryshere's own mother, Andrea Mayberry, was deeply involved in his exploitation. Not only had she allowed Bryshere to be taken under the wings of these powerful Hollywood figures, but Jaguar alleges that Andrea actively colluded with Charlie Mack, Bryshere's manager at the time, to sell him into their control. Pause for effect. A mother selling her son's future to the very people who would use him. Jaguar went further, explaining how Andrea had known about the abuse but failed to intervene. She even reportedly begged Jaguar for help when things had already spiraled out of control. But instead of taking action to protect her son, Andrea chose to turn a blind eye to the manipulation. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a complete abandonment of Bryshere's well-being. As Jaguar said, she knew what was happening, but she did nothing. Could a mother's greed be more powerful than a son's pain? It seems so in Bryshere's tragic case. Jaguar's frustration boiled over as she described how Andrea allowed Bryshere to fall deeper into the hands of Diddy and Will. When she advised Andrea to get Bryshere away from Charlie Mack, who she considered the link between her son and the industry, Andrea ignored her. This wasn't a situation where a mother was trying to protect her child. It was one where she was complicit in letting the Hollywood machine consume her son. But the plot thickens. As more secrets came to light, it became clear that this wasn't just about one man's tragedy. It was about the entire system that allowed such abuse to happen. As Bryshere Gray's career fell apart, rumors began to surface that he was planning to file a massive lawsuit, one that could shake the very foundations of Hollywood. The lawsuit was reportedly aimed at none other than Diddy and Will Smith, the two industry giants who had allegedly played a role in his abuse. Sources close to Bryshere claimed that he had been preparing a $50 million lawsuit against both men for their involvement in his exploitation, manipulation, and mistreatment. The timing couldn't have been worse, as Bryshere's name began to make headlines again, not for his acting career, but for the ongoing legal battles and personal breakdowns. It was clear that Hollywood was trying to silence him. The entertainment industry, it seemed, wasn't just willing to ignore Bryshere's suffering, it was actively working to discredit him. They needed to label him as unstable, mentally unfit to stand trial, or untrustworthy in any way possible to prevent his case from gaining traction. But the real shock came when Jaguar Wright went public with even more chilling details about Bryshere's planned lawsuit. According to her, there was a secret tape, one that allegedly involved not just Diddy and Will Smith, but also Jaden Smith, Justin Bieber, and Bryshere himself. The tape supposedly documented the freak-offs that Bryshere was allegedly coerced into participating in, an act that would haunt him for the rest of his life. According to Jaguar, this tape wasn't just evidence of abuse, it was a tool used to blackmail Bryshere into silence. The industry needed him to be embarrassed, broken, and too ashamed to ever speak out. This bombshell revelation sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. If the tape existed, it would provide damning evidence of what many had suspected for years, the dark underbelly of Hollywood's treatment of its young stars. But even if the tape was real, would Bryshere ever be able to escape the powerful grip of the industry? And if he did come forward, could he ever regain control of his own story? But the conspiracy surrounding Bryshere's downfall doesn't end there. Whispers began to circulate that the entire industry was involved in a coordinated effort to silence him. By pushing him deeper into addiction, legal trouble, and mental instability, they could ensure he would never have the chance to expose the truth. They had the power to destroy him, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And Bryshere's struggle was a stark reminder of the lengths Hollywood would go to protect its secrets. Terrence Howard's comments on Hollywood's treatment of black men have sparked both admiration and controversy. He's always been outspoken, but his recent remarks hit a nerve with many, especially in the context of Bryshere Gray's tragic story. Howard made a bold statement about how Hollywood has an agenda to feminize black men, stripping away their masculinity to fit a certain narrative in the entertainment industry. He argued that in Hollywood, the more masculine a man is, the less likely he is to succeed, especially if he's black. Could Terrence Howard be right? Has Hollywood systematically broken down the identity of black men in the industry, forcing them to conform to an effeminate, submissive ideal in exchange for success? Howard's comments felt particularly relevant when considering Bryshere's story. From the moment he entered the scene, Bryshere had all the potential to become a leading man in Hollywood. He was young, charismatic, and full of promise. But somewhere along the way, something went terribly wrong. His fall from grace seemed to coincide with the pressures and manipulations that Terrence Howard spoke about. According to Howard, black men who resist this feminization are often labeled as problematic, their careers sidelined or destroyed. Could Bryshere's downfall be the result of him failing to conform to Hollywood's narrow expectations of black masculinity? Was Bryshere's rise to fame and subsequent fall really a result of Hollywood's agenda? Or was it just the result of a troubled man making destructive decisions? Howard seemed to think there was a more sinister plot at play. While Howard's comments resonated with many, others were quick to point out the contradictions in his own life. Some critics brought up his own history, with allegations of domestic violence, questioning his ability to speak out on issues of abuse. His past made some people hesitant to fully embrace his views on the topic, arguing that he might be deflecting attention from his own mistakes. Brief pause. Is Terrence Howard genuinely concerned about the plight of black men in Hollywood, or is he using Bryshere's story to push his own narrative? But whether or not you agree with Howard, his comments brought attention to a critical issue that is rarely discussed: the systematic breakdown of black masculinity in Hollywood and how stars like Bryshere Gray become victims of this invisible force. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes. Bryshere's story isn't just about one man's fall. It's about a much larger, systemic issue in the entertainment industry. As the drama surrounding Bryshere Gray continued to unfold, the public's reaction was nothing short of a spectacle. Some rallied behind him, convinced that he was a victim of a system designed to chew up young talent and spit them out when they were no longer useful. Fans and supporters expressed outrage, with many taking to social media to demand justice for Bryshere. They argued that he was just another casualty of an industry that cared more about about power and profit than the well-being of the stars it created. On the other hand, there were those who believed Bryshere had made his own choices. They questioned whether he was truly a victim or whether he had allowed himself to fall prey to the temptations of Hollywood. Was his downfall the result of a system working against him, or was it simply a case of a troubled man making poor decisions? The debate raged on, and as more details emerged, it became clear that no one really knew the whole story. But amidst the growing public discourse, one thing became undeniable. Bryshere's story had touched a nerve. His name had become synonymous with the darkness of Hollywood, and the more people dug into his past, the more they uncovered. The tragic details of his life, his violent outbursts, his addiction, his legal troubles, painted a picture of a man who had been pushed to the brink. But it wasn't just about Bryshere anymore. It was about the entire system that had allowed this to happen. Terrence Howard's comments about the treatment of black men in Hollywood only added fuel to the fire. His outspoken criticism of the industry's tendency to feminize black men for the sake of entertainment sparked a fierce debate. Many believed Howard was hinting at Bryshere's fate, how the industry had used him, broken him, and discarded him without a second thought. Howard's words seemed to resonate with those who saw Bryshere as a symbol of everything that was wrong with Hollywood's treatment of young black men. But the conversation didn't stop there. Some felt that Terrence Howard's remarks were an attempt to deflect attention from his own checkered past. Critics pointed to his history with allegations of domestic violence and wondered if he was truly in a position to speak out against the system. Was he genuinely concerned about Bryshere, or was he using the situation to further his own agenda? As more people spoke out, the speculation grew louder. Was Bryshere's story just another cautionary tale of the Hollywood machine, or was there something deeper at play? Could he ever escape the shadows of his past, or was he destined to remain a pawn in a much larger game? What's clear is this: Bryshere Gray's story is far from over. The truth may still be buried, but the questions about Hollywood's dark secrets, the exploitation of young stars, and the power of the industry are only getting louder. So, where does this leave Bryshere Gray? Is he just another casualty of Hollywood's dark side, or is there hope for him to reclaim his truth? The lawsuits, the secret tapes, the betrayals, it all points to a bigger, more disturbing issue that we may never fully understand. But one thing's for sure: Bryshere's story isn't over yet. And as for the industry that created him, well, the questions are just beginning. Will anyone in Hollywood ever pay for the damage they've done to stars like Bryshere, or will they continue to operate behind closed doors, with their power and influence shielding them from the truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Bryshere deserves justice? Do you agree with Terrence Howard's take on Hollywood?